everyone, welcome to Living La Vita Loca podcast, a retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. My name is Fazz.
And I'm not Fazz.
There we go. You know, we have an anti-Fazz.
Anti-Fazz.
I think that's what my sister calls herself.
Tough on Fazz and tough on the causes of Fazz.
Oh,
your
God.
Parents?
I imagine people are always trying to scrub me out. Hi. How are you? We just thought I've come around your house and we didn't even talk to each other. We thought we'd just share our lives on the
Communicate in a
podcast
vague series of grunts
in front of several people. You all right? You went karaoke last Saturday, I believe. Did you go?
Yeah. It was good fun. It was also carnage.
Was it
on the singing front?
Oh right, okay.
Drunkenness wise, everybody was very sensible.
Good.
Absolutely fine. But yeah, singing not so good.
How do you find sober karaoke? I find that difficult to. It shouldn't be the case, but I definitely feel like I need a couple of drinks to kind of just grease the wheels.
I would much rather do it sober.
Oh really?
Yeah.
All right, okay. Well, what makes you feel better about it sober? I feel very self-conscious.
Can't remember words.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but I can't remember them sober anyway, so... Does it really matter? Yeah. They're on the screen, it's fine.
The timing was off with a couple of the songs. Yeah. So we were just looking at it and going like, this is not right. This is not right.
It's the song that's wrong.
It was demonstrably the song that was wrong.
And is anyone a really good singer that was in the group there, or was it just a fair?
I think everybody had their moments. Let's put it like that. In my case, few and far between. It was a couple of pleasant surprises as well.
Okay, nice. I like this. That we'll never quite know what happened, but that's not. But that's that you've got to be there. You've got to be there. Have you got a favourite karaoke song?
Not really.
All right. Okay. No, that's fine. I mean, I wouldn't expect anybody to necessarily have one, apart from people that do karaoke all the time.
Yeah, no, only done it a handful of times.
Yeah,
so.
I work with a chap who goes, I'd say very often, not isn't at least once a week, I think, and he absolutely loves it. He's a really good singer, but he's like kind of like club bar singing. That isn't, so
actually in front of people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, fuck that. No, we had a little room. So,
but it is in front of people, but like I don't know, like
people
probably like Ted from like the cricket club that does the lawn and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Speaking of cricket clubs,
yeah.
This week on the podcast, so one of the things that I decided that I thought would be a good idea to do, don't know if it is or isn't, is talk about Brian Lara Cricket, the series, and specifically through the lens of Brian Lara Cricket Pressure Play from 2007 on the PSP. Polite nod.
Pressure Play?
I know, yeah.
What the hell does that even mean?
It feels like the developers might have been under pressure.
Right.
Is what I would allude to.
Fair enough.
But yeah, because the T20 World Cup is on at the moment. And any cricket in your life, Rich? No, none at all? No?
Nope.
Ever played or anything like
that? I think I stood in front of some stumps at school.
Yeah, no, that's cricket. You played it.
Is that cricket?
Yeah,
Have I done a cricket?
You've done a cricket.
I've done a cricket. I've never. It's never grabbed me, really.
It was one of those sports that, like most sports that I'll probably talk about in the podcast, like I played it for several years at school level and was very, very, very middling at it. Enough to get into the school team, but only because there wasn't enough people that could beat me out of the team. That makes sense. Like,
how many people do you have in a cricket team?
11.
Okay.
The traditional 11-man team situation.
Still not to be sniffed at.
Yeah, and you get batsmen, and then you get specialist bowlers, and then you kind of get a mix of a person in between the middle who is probably no good at either or really good at both, and they're called all-rounders.
Right.
Or someone like, I was very much like I am with a lot of my sporting sort of pursuits, a glue guy. Definitely a glue guy. So, but I would say a lot of my love for cricket probably sprung from the Brian Lara series. So I'm excited to talk about that. And yeah, I'm probably less excited than I was on Saturday when I was thinking about it and I was sort of playing the game and stuff. And then I watched England play Australia in the T20 World Cup, and we got dicked. So, it's not looking great for England, but a team that it is looking very good for at the moment. And I note the 32% of our listeners that come from the United States of America, they've won 2 games already. Oh. I know, and they don't play the cricket, they play the baseball.
They play a different thing involving a bat and ball, don't they?
But now they're taking the English sports and they're just hitting us with them over the heads, starting with an actual cricket bat. So
is that a bad thing?
Yeah. So hopefully we might have a couple of people listening. Oh, it might be, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of a fucking googly or anything.
How to do a cricket.
Yeah, how to do a cricket, in front of the stumps and things. But certainly I'll go into the Brian Lara series a little bit, and hopefully it might inspire a little bit of retro gaming out of that to do cricket.
There you
go. So that's the Lara part of the pod. What's the larger part of the pod?
This feels like a stretch.
No, it's okay.
Don't big worry. Stretch. Godzilla.
Yay!
Big old monsters. If you got Brian Lara, who was a titan of cricket.
He was a titan of cricket.
There you go. Then you got a literal titan. That's the segue.
Playing cricket with skyscrapers, maybe
not quite
hitting children across cities.
No. Are you familiar with Godzilla?
I've seen parts of it.
You seem to have it confused with a school bully.
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, Godzilla is sat right behind you, and we've already mentioned one famous K export from Japan, karaoke. Another one being kaiju.
Yep.
And I expect that you'll probably have some things to say about your favourite kaijus, maybe, and things and stuff. Or
maybe.
Kaijai?
Kaijai?
Kaijis? I don't know. We'll think about that.
We'll workshop it.
Workshop the plural of kaiju. And then...
Pretty sure kaiju is the plural of kaiju. It's like sheep.
It probably is,
or Pokemon. Don't tell me it's Pokemons. Also, incidentally, if we've got 30% of people listening from America, it's not Legos! It's Lego. Sorry, carry on.
No, that's okay, that's fine. That's okay. I mean, to be fair, that is a specific brand. So when I was naming the podcast, the Lego podcast we did a little while ago, I genuinely looked at whether it was all capitalised or not, because it is a brand.
I bet they're really strict with brand stuff.
Yeah. Somebody's watching.
Should we expect a knock at the door?
Yeah. From a Lego kaiju.
That'd be great if you turn up like a giant minifig. It was guys. Sorry, I don't know where I'm going with that. I'm very tired.
Are you okay? Yeah. Not really. Good podcasting. And then, speaking of good podcasting, I'm trying to flesh out a title here.
Yeah.
So we've had Larger and Lara.
Right.
The thing that goes at the front would be Little?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Little, Larger, and Lara. I was telling you.
Yeah, right.
Okay, you don't have a choice in that. If you'd come up with something else, it'd have been overruled.
Yeah, I was going to say Lemming.
Yeah, no.
Which wouldn't work.
And that's what it is, Little Lemmings. So, and we're looking at the PSP port of Lemmings. So another kind of, I guess, gaming series that started in the early 90s, and then kind of much like Brian Lara. Yeah, pretty much.
Brian Lara didn't go off a cliff, I assume.
I mean, he's a brave man. He probably hit a 6 off a cliff. Yeah,
right, there we go. That's fine.
Like, if you look at Barbados's ground, it is tiny. You could I saw several solar panels get murdered the other day, and and you just think have some heart. You know what I mean?
Won't anyone think of the solar panels?
So, where do we want to start then in this absolutely ridiculously segues mix of bullshit? So Godzilla, you didn't even say, sorry, is it which platform which game it was? Sorry.
It's Destroy All Monsters Melee on the GameCube. And I have no idea what is going on with that title.
No.
It's like Smash Bros. Happened and they were like, we need to put Melee on the end of it.
Yeah.
Quick. But on the plus side, the abbreviation is DAMM.
Damn, son.
So that's exciting. But I'm also going to do a little bit of a detour into Rampage as well.
Oh, right, okay, cool.
So that's exciting.
I knew you mentioned that you were maybe going to look at Rampage or Godzilla. I didn't realise you were going to do a little bit of both. That's exciting for me.
Haven't looked in any great detail. But yeah.
Did you open the box?
I smelt the plastic.
I can review from here.
Yeah, like a gaming sommelier.
I bet there's someone like that exists out there.
Almost certainly.
You know, like it's in the blowing a cartridge. Just get the musk. Like,
can name all the developers.
Yeah. Oh, I genuinely think we can make something like that before anyone else does.
God.
No one steal our ideas. No one steal those ideas. Stop sniffing things. We're going to do it first. So, let's start then with the little, I think. And then we'll grow into
we'll get
the large and then into the Lara of things. So, Lemmings. Ever since we started this podcast, I've been kind of wanting to talk about Lemmings as general in a series. But I also noted, because I like to do a little bit of research before the podcast, like I'll have a look and see what's been said before. I'll look at reviews. I'll look at historical artifacts.
Really?
Did that just leave my mouth?
Historical artifacts.
It was so funny.
Fucking Indiana Jones over here. You looking at historical artifacts. Bollocks to you. You look at Wikipedia.
That left my mouth, and immediately I was like, did you just say that?
You said it.
I know, it was brilliant. Yeah, I do look at historical artifacts.
Yeah.
Such as the Lemmings documentary from 2021, I think it is,
Okay.
called Lemmings, Can You Dig It? 2 hours that thing is. Didn't watch it all. I watched about like 12 minutes, but yeah, like
Wow.
and then read the review of the of the documentary. But yeah, I do my digging, ironically enough. Yeah, and yeah, so I noticed there was quite a lot of Lemmings podcasts, and people have covered it before, and it's, I think that probably one of the most ported games in history. Developed in 1991 by DMA Designs, who also did. I mean, this is the little quiz here.
Oh, is it a quiz?
Yeah. You were looking at me.
Grand Theft Auto,
Yeah.
Body Harvest.
Yeah.
A couple of other bits and bobs.
Yeah, nice, well done. Yeah,
They'll be famous one day.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, and they carved their teeth out on a couple of side-scrolling games, and then they came up with Lemmings, which just feels like an absolute home run now, obviously. But you know,
it does make me wonder what actually, like, numerically is the most ported game of all time.
I did try for a little 13 seconds of my life.
Couldn't find the right artifact.
Yeah.
In the wrong museum.
Lemmings, it belongs in a museum. So yeah, I did try and look into that. I couldn't find a definitive answer because I genuinely do think that this must be ported pretty, at least in the 90s, was pretty much ported everywhere. Yeah. So it started life on the Amiga, I believe, and then spread out from there. So yeah, I mean, I guess what I was trying to get at here was that I don't really want to go through the history of Lemmings and kind of tell people what Lemmings is. I think that most people would know what Lemmings is and how the game works, but I will do a little bit of this is what Lemmings is, but not too much. Right. I kind of want to dig into what the PSP port was like, because actually I think there's some good points to be made, hopefully by me, to say whether it was actually a good port or not.
Right.
And it's still the last port that was made on a games console of
Really?
Lemmings. Yeah.
Full stop.
After that, it's mobile in like 2018 that I guess has your favourite things, microtransactions.
Jesus, really?
Yeah.
They put I can't even say it. Microtransactions in Lemmings.
Yeah, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I do know that when I tried to download it, immediately it was kind of like, sell me some stuff.
I have so many questions, and I don't think I want answers to any of them.
So when I looked it up, this is definitely the last port on a games console. So this effectively is the definitive, if you ask me.
This is the last evolutionary point.
The last time, we will see Lemmings.
Wow.
And the thing is, Lemmings aren't Lemmings, really. Like the little green and blue sprites that just kind of look nothing like a fucking lemming. Like, as in, and also famously, Lemmings, not famously, don't just kill themselves all the time off cliffs. That's just a myth. So
I mean, that would explain how we still have them.
Yeah.
I guess, thinking about it.
I imagine there's just like some like Attenborough guy like stood on the edge of a cliff like in the Arctic just with a big net waiting for them just to plunge through. Like, oh, fucking hell, right, okay, this is a hard day. Like, it's in just some sort of preservation.
Yeah. Got to avoid that evolutionary cul-de-sac that is just relentlessly throwing yourself off cliff.
So these lemmings... and I would say look less like lemmings and more like aliens. And I think it's quite a brave sort of thing to kind of go, oh, these are lemmings. That isn't, because I guess maybe in the early 90s, nobody'd seen a lemming. Like, is it like, I don't know. Like, is it,
we didn't have the internet. No one knew.
It was like these guys in Dundee were just like, what's the nearest mammal to us?
I mean, maybe that's what they look like
geographically. Yeah, maybe, yeah. So you control these little cute blue-green lemmings, inverted
quote
comma,
unquote lemmings,
and they are again trying to throw themselves off a cliff effectively because they don't stop moving. They're just constantly moving, and all you're trying to do is get them from point A, where they drop out of this godlike trapdoor, like heaven almost, and drop into your level, and then they just start bouncing around between sort of obstacles or towards edges of cliffs, and you have to stop them from doing that because you are expected to save a certain amount of lemmings per level.
Right.
Yep. So I don't think there's much more to say about the concept of the game, apart from the fact that you have a job system, which is weird enough to say.
Yeah.
But like, that's what it is effectively, isn't it? So I think you have like 8 jobs, and they're randomly things like blockers, which can help hold lemmings in a certain area. You've got people that build bridges out of bricks, which makes the best sound effect ever at the end of it. I can hear that in my dreams. that chink, 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 and you're like, oh, is it going to make it? Is it going to be long enough as a bridge? Bombs, so you can blow lemmings up if you want to, although you don't really want to. That's more of a necessity if you need to kind of, sometimes you only get given bombs as a job. And it's like, oh, you need to blow your way. You need to get to the end. The very first time you see that happen, where it's like, you've got 5 lemmings. You need to save 4 lemmings, and you've only been given 1 job on your job list, which is 1 bomb. And you're like, the very first time you see that, you're like, wait a minute, one of these lemmings is not going to make it. So that's another job. And you can bash through walls, climbing, parachute lemmings are fun. That is in. I'd say my favourite job is the bomb, because I like chaos. And the least favourite job is the blocker, because, again, I like chaos. I don't want order. I want them all to blow up and die, which is probably not the best for the goal of the game.
Evolutionary cul-de-sac.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I'd be off that cliff straight away. I'd be aiming for the edge. Aim for the bushes. What's that from again, that film?
Can't remember.
Yeah, that one. Anyway, something guys. Anyway, other guys? I think it is. So, that's it really, I'd say, about the main concept of the game. If you've not played Lemmings before, and you don't feel like that is enough for you, go find a better podcast than this one. I think there's one called Computer Gaming History I was listening to as a bit of a sort of research, and he does an amazing job of explaining what Lemmings is and goes into all the back history and development, whereas this is just this, we are the Lemmings in this podcast, so and just fucking deal with it. So the thing that I enjoy the most about Lemmings is I'd say that it's very tongue-in-cheek whatever you do. So some of the obstacles that you have are generically you have the cliff that you expect to fall off, but also you have like Venus flytraps, nooses, buzzsaws, lava, all these things you would expect to meet on a commute to work, I guess. I like to imagine the Lemmings are on their way to work. Do you not have that?
Nooses?
Yeah. Roadworks. They're effectively the same. So yeah, that what I really enjoy about Lemmings is that fact that you kind of get that sort of, you can clearly tell the makers were, let's just have fun with this, and expect you to do the same. So Lemmings through the ages, not much has really changed. There's 120 levels, which is quite sizable in the very first iteration of Lemmings. Different consoles got different amounts of levels on certain things. There's also different levels of difficulty as well, which is great. It goes from easy to like taxing / mayhem, which I always thought was really nice that they named that differently from like, very easy to medium to hard. They actually found some fun ways to describe it. And they also found fun ways to describe levels as well. So so the PSP version has those 120 initial levels plus 36 new levels as well, which is nice to see. Do you know what I mean? They took the time to think about it. So we're here in 2007. There is a PSP port and also a PS2 and a PS3 port that came out at the same time. Right. I think, give or take a couple of months. Now, what I'm about to tell you might shock you, but the PSP port has more content than the PS2 and the PS3 port.
Wow.
Or did.
Oh.
So, there used to be a website called yourpsp.com/lemmings.
Right.
Where you could go and you could get 2 downloadable, I think 4 downloadable extra levels, which is nice to hear.
Yeah.
And also, there is an ability on the PSP to actually build and edit levels. Nice. Which doesn't exist anywhere else as well.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, brilliant. Like, it's in the PSP, here we go.
Well done,
here we fucking
PSP.
go. Like, the
killer app found.
So, when I said you could get to them, your psp.com/lemmings doesn't exist anymore. So I was like, that's really annoying to me. But then, step in game preservationists who have kept it alive. And actually, if you look in the right places if you're downloading PSP bits, if you will, like I did Wipeout Pure when you got the extra tracks, they're still there. They're on the internet. You can still get those four levels. So to still do that in 2024 is brilliant. So thank you to those people that put them on the internet, whether that's rightly or wrongly or not. But it's rightly, because if they didn't, it wouldn't exist anymore.
They'd be gone.
Part of the game that wouldn't exist anymore. So, it's lovely to know that is the case. Graphically, so I kind of thought, right, I'll have a little look at the SNES version of the Lemmings and sort of see, because I kind of had a fond memory of how the sprites looked, and I thought, maybe I prefer the old version of Lemmings compared to this sort of rounded, gelatinous, sort of like lovely looking, like, I guess, young David Beckham-esque Lemming on the PSP and PS3 versions. But I didn't. I lied to myself. I prefer the new Lemming look on the PSP. It's kind of like a 3D rendered background, but everything's still 2D and really pleasant on the eye. And probably one of the better looking games on the PSP for what it offers you, almost, which is very little. Like, you get a set level, but like, as in, it looks all nice and well rounded, and it's better for your eyes would be the easiest way for me to say that. At least I feel that anyway. So that was another plus point of having the PSP port. And then also, it's like you get to a point where you realise, this game was first made to be played on a computer with a keyboard and a mouse. How did the controls feel? Because PSP famously is terrible at porting things for controls. Yeah. The controls are really great. Like, as in, so you move through your job system with your L button and R button very easily, with a lovely little sound effect that just sounds like a piano going up and down, like boop, 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 boop. and the way they've set out the control system, like, it's perfect. It is perfect, like, for a handheld device to be able to just hold that within your hands and get through what I would call pressure points, where you've got lots of lemmings coming at you at a fast rate, and you need to save them from an edge or something like that, but you never get muddled up, which I would expect to happen from a game that was ported from 18 years ago in 2007 to a handheld. Could be a little
bit clunky.
Yeah, but actually they're taking their time to think about it and actually put some really good controls on there. So I was like, oh, well done. And then finally I noticed as well that I don't know if this is the same in the original game or not, and it probably was, but something that I quite enjoyed about Lemmings in general, and I know I talk about this game quite a lot, and it's probably because I'm really spiteful about it, but take note, Parappa the Rapper, that you can access more of the game even if you're not very good at it than you would think. Yeah. So out of the 156 levels, there's 5 levels in each difficulty bracket available to you straight away. So effectively, there's 25 levels available to you without having to open anything up or complete anything. So that's really good, because you could easily... I would assume most people will find the easy levels easy, and then you can work your way up and you have a really nice difficulty curve there. Yeah. But even then, if you know that you're good at Lemmings, or you feel like you're going to be good at the puzzling, then you can go for those hard levels straight away as well, and even have a crack at that. And you might never even need to access the easy levels. If you're a completionist, you probably would. Yeah. But at the same time, like you might go, oh, they're too easy, or even the medium are too easy. I just want to go to the hard levels, and it's there for you. But it doesn't give you everything either. It's not like all the levels are open. It's like, you still have to work for it to be able to get to those levels. And I'm going to be honest, on this playthrough and previous playthrough as well, when I was sort of 18 years old or whatever, like as in, I still get stuck on the mayhem levels. Like I think I got to like the 12th level out of 25, right. and I'm struggling. Like as in, I am like, wow, this is like, a hard puzzle. Like I genuinely should put some effort into this to complete this game at some point because it is beating me. But I don't mind that. I think it's not because the game's shonky or anything like that. I don't think it's too hard either. I think you just need to have a sit down and really think about it and put some time and effort into doing that. So I think it's more of a me thing than it is the game thing, that there's a big difficulty kind of coming up, because it gives you all that runway to get good at Lemmings. Like, as in, before you get hit, the ones that you're like, oh shit, I cannot do these. Yeah. Like, I think I remembered, like, when I had it on the PS3 as well, like, I think I got to, like, maybe, like, the hard ones, for example, or whatever they're called, taxing. Like, I think it was, like, level 23 at level 25, I got to that, and it's like, so you don't even have to get to the end of that, and then you're like, oh, I'm onto the Mayhem ones, and I've done like 17 or 18 of the Mayhem ones. It's really good at doing that. So I was really pleased to see that as well, and that had existed as well on the PSP. And it just, as a lot of the puzzling games for the PSP are as well, it's just a perfect sort of handheld, sitting down. I'd say relax. It's not an exciting game. It's more relaxing, I would say. That is in, even with the time limit you get, and also the limit of Lemming lives. That is in, hashtag Lemmings lives. It still feels quite relaxing and chilled out, and it's probably one of those ones, and I know I use this analogy a lot, but one for the bus, do you know what I mean? Like, as in, one for the plane or something like that, where you kind of, you could knock out a couple of hours, knock out 20 levels, and just really kind of sit down and zone out. Yeah. And I did that when I was sort of playing through it, and, it was like, yeah, I felt at one with the Lemmings and nature. So, yeah, I think that it gets a little samey. That's one thing I'd say about it. Like, whilst the challenge in the levels is different, you're still doing the same thing over and over. And I've probably had that criticism before of certain types of games where, like, for example, like fighting games and stuff, where I'm like, well, you're kind of doing the same thing all the time, so I can't not do that for this as well. And I think I said the same thing sort of for Loco Roco 2 as well. So there are sort of some drawbacks where you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over, without going, I probably need to put this down for a while. But apart from that, it's a really good puzzle game that's ported really well. And whilst I was joking about it before, I definitely would say this feels like a definitive version of what Lemmings. It looks great, it sounds great, it controls brilliantly, it's in your lap, you get loads of content. I'd say it's a very easy 8 out of 10. Like, do I push it to a 9? Probably an 8, I think. What I mean? I'd sit it there just under Loco Roco at 9, just because I feel like, whilst that hasn't got the worldwide love of what Lemmings is and things, like, I think that when you look into, I'd say Loco Roco is almost the evolution of what Lemmings was, if that makes sense. Okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, as in, so you get a little bit more to it than that. The music's a bit more jaunty, and there's a few more things to do in it, and the controls are a bit different and a bit more advanced. So it feels like that's kind of like where Lemmings kind of went to, almost, in a way. But never forget your history. So that's me on Lemmings, which nice. I'm quite happy to sort of share that and try and get that out in the world and say, go play the PSP version if you can, because if you like Lemmings, definitely go and try that.
Nice,
so, cool. That's my little.
That's your little.
How's your large?
Show your large.
Show me. Give me your large.
Let's go large. So yeah, I went into this thinking, like, I want to do something involving big stompy monsters, because I just fancy doing something involving big stompy monsters.
You like them?
I've been sniffing around the Godzilla game that I've got on the GameCube for a little while.
You have. You smelly over there.
Yeah. And then I was going through bits and bobs and was like, oh shit, like I can play like the original arcade Rampage, and like, I've got it on the Master System as well.
Oh, cool.
And on the Evercade, there's the monster movie monster game or something like that
Okay.
on the Commodore 64. And I was like, okay, I'm going to need to... That's good. That one's going to take a little bit of work because I need to get my head around what's going on with that.
I'm gonna open some chocolate buttons.
Go for it. So, arcade version of Rampage, 1986.
Wow.
Seemingly. When I did play the Movie Monster game, I wasn't overly blown away by it. But Rampage, you know, where the Movie Monster game is quite, considering you're controlling big stompy monsters, it's quite cumbersome. And you know,
more so than expected.
And yeah, like I didn't spend long enough with it to sit here and go, I was quite disappointed by it. But I didn't stick around. But Rampage, like, definitely sort of scratched the big stompy monster destroying stuff box.
Okay.
So you have your three characters: a giant ape that's legally distinct from King Kong, a giant lizard that is legally distinct from Godzilla, and a giant werewolf. I have no idea what's going on with that one.
I don't know.
But at any rate, you go through different cities, you destroy them. If you've got a friend playing with you, you can beat each other up, and you score points, you move on, and you keep going until you die. It's good fun. It's pretty snappy, pretty breezy. You don't have to think about it too much. Looks good, sounds good. I don't know if it was just the version I was playing, but I don't think there was any music in it while you were playing or anything like that. So it was just the sound effects. So if you're playing on your own, it can get a little bit like sparse.
Yeah.
Unless you are like relentlessly wrecking shit.
That's maybe what the expectation is. Like,
well, yeah, maybe
the more people dead.
Yeah, yeah.
The more fun you're having.
Actually, that is a fair point. I hadn't thought of that one. But that does bring me to the Master System version. So on the arcade, you have like one life, a credit, and then once you're killed, that's it. You start over. The Master System version tweaks that so you have a life system, but you also have music, and you still have the multiplayer. You still have an opportunity to go through various cities, and it's like the whole thing. Like, instead of having 3 players, I think you can have 3 players at once on the arcade. Master System, you can only have 2, but the flip side is that it feels a bit more accommodating as like a kind of single player at home experience.
Yeah.
Like, they actually sat down and thought about it, you know? And I think that my biggest kind of criticism of the Master System version is that it's a little bit fiddly for like climbing a building to start breaking things.
Notoriously, climbing a building is fiddly.
Well, you've got to be in a very specific place to start climbing, unless you're jumping at it and you know you're getting your timings right for pressing directions and stuff like that. And because everything, like the city you are destroying, is on a 2D plane on a single screen, and you can kind of punch buildings that are behind the building you're currently on from the building you're currently on. Okay. And, you know, things like...
Sounds difficult to make, though, to develop that game.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Sounds like they really swung for the fences, at least.
Yeah, and I mean, the Master System version was 89, apparently. So, like, for that to be the case, and I think it is held up by a number of people as probably being, much like Lemmings you were just talking about, like, one of, if not the definitive version of Rampage. And I would get behind that. Like, I had really, really good fun with it. Yeah. But I was sitting there going, like, you know what? It's just not quite scratching the itch.
Oh, really?
Of the wanton destruction. And so I indulged my whims and went with Godzilla. And it's basically, well, so with Godzilla, right? My favourite Godzilla bits, my favourite Godzilla movies, are the ones where, you know, you have the people living in these places that are being, you know, attacked, visited by Godzilla. It kind of depends on the film.
He's not leaving a Google review.
Well, I like the ones where
Tokyo was shit. 1 star.
But this is the thing, right? Like, some of them, when they tread a fine line between, like, is he actually trying to hurt people, or are we just in the way of where he's going? Yeah. You know? And so the ones that I gravitate towards are the ones where Godzilla is almost like either a thing to be lived with or a problem to be dealt with, right? Rather
Yeah.
than, the thing that is going to be doing the fighting and all that. Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee is very much Godzilla is doing the fighting. So it's kind of the opposite end of the scale to what I like about the whole Godzilla kaiju thing, right? So if you start to see it through the lens of like something that's much more like a Smash Bros or a Power Stone or something like that, where you and a bunch of people who are also playing as big monsters go into a city, you've got basically the same inputs with a couple of slight variations. Like one of them might not be able to press like up and B to get the same attack as everybody else, kind of thing. And you're getting close to it, right? So it's never going to or it didn't win any awards for like as a competitive fighting game, right? It is not a.
Are you sure on that?
You're not going to be checking the frame data on Godzilla's uppercut, right? But it's fun. And you can pick up certain objects around the cities or wherever you're fighting. So, like, if you are, out in the wilderness, it could be boulders or it could be shipping or cargo ships, rather, and all that kind of stuff. It is janky as hell in places, right? So, like, the animation's a bit stiff and things will move in a bit of a weird way, and it just feels a little bit, well, cumbersome again. And I know you are playing as giant stompy monsters, but nonetheless, it just like it's a difficult one to feel like you are fully controlling it in a kind of meaningful way. Yeah. And I'm not explaining that particularly well.
Is Godzilla in control? That's what I want to know of himself.
Well,
at all times, or not.
So this is kind of a point that I got to, which I will come back to. So hold that thought in mind. But like you'll go in and you'll have you've got various modes. So you've got adventure mode where there's like an insane plot involving aliens, and it's all very B-movie. And Godzilla has to, or whoever you are playing as, has to beat up a load of other monsters, and then you have a boss fight, and that's that. My disc kept glitching out at one point. There was one fight, maybe 3 or 4 fights in, where I was starting to find it pretty difficult to get past, and I went through a phase, maybe about 4 or 5 times, where I got past it, and then the game would soft reset on its own. And I don't think it was a glitch. I think it was a dirty disc on my part. But nonetheless, you do have those little bits where you're like, okay, it's some of the jank, like, not deliberate. But on the whole, like, plays well. You've got your multiplayer modes where you just go into a city and beat each other up. You've got a multiplayer mode where you can go in and just see how much of the city you can destroy. Yeah. And I suppose in that respect, it's kind of like, in Splatoon, where you're basically trying to see how much ground you can cover. Yeah. It's not a million miles off that kind of idea. You're just seeing how much of the city you can destroy compared to everybody else. The point is, you're breaking shit. And it's great. And when you are moving around these cities fighting against the other kaiju, you'll fling each other around, you'll punch, you'll kick, you'll do whatever, and the city will just crumble around you as you move through it, or fall against the buildings and all that. And it considering like it came out, mid noughties, early noughties, it still looks good. The dust and like debris going everywhere and all that kind of stuff. You get like a kind of rage super move type thing you can do, and like it's not.
Oh my god, he's coming off the top rope.
It's not particularly complicated, but like it's fun. It's you've got gallery things you can unlock and all that kind of stuff. Now the point I was going to come back to for the jankiness and the sort of stiffness of how it all moves, I had a bit of a revelation where there's one animation. So say you've got a kaiju with a load of spikes on their back, right? And they fall down, facing the floor, and you go to stamp their back, but you hurt your foot on their back. And Godzilla will, like, hop around in a kind of immediate, my toes kind of a way. And similarly, like, there are certain moves that will hit very, very low that will get a very similar reaction that looks ridiculous. However, you go back and you watch some of the like 60s kind of Godzilla films where it's blokes in rubber suits fighting each other.
Yeah.
It's exactly that kind
Oh,
of
really?
animation. And I had that moment of like, fuck me. Like, the stiffness and the jank, like, it's basically blokes in rubber suits fighting each other in a tiny model city. And when you start to see the game like that, a lot of it clicks into place. And I just had that moment of like, you know what? What felt like jank, I think might actually be the developers really tipping the cap to like classic Godzilla fights. And doing a whole, you know what? Like, they are big lumbering creatures, we know, but ultimately, you see it as blokes in suits
also a man in a rubber
throwing punches at each other. I think the whole thing reads very differently, and I've gotta give it points for that, right? So, as far as I'm concerned, like I think if you were looking at it objectively, and as I've said time and time again, I'm not doing that.
Fuck that.
But I think if you were looking at it objectively, it's a 6 out of 10 all day, right? And I would be totally fine with that. But it was when I had that moment of like, actually, no, I can't unsee this idea now that I've planted in my own head about blokes in rubber suits wailing on each other. And like, it's at least a 7, if not an 8.
Oh, really? Cool.
Like, and I think if you're going to be on board with it, you can forgive quite a lot of the sort of the technical shortcomings of the fighting. And I don't mean like, you know, glitches or anything like that. I just mean like, it is not a technical fighting game. You know, there's not much meat on the bones apart from the fact they are huge monsters. So I guess technically there's a hell of a lot of meat on the bone. But you know, if you go in with it as a fighting game, you're going to be disappointed. If you go in with the kind of mindset that, like, back in the day, you could have rented this on a Friday night, gone around your mates on the Saturday, had a hell of a time, return it on the Sunday afternoon, perfectly satisfied, I think you're going to get on with it really,
That's
really
exactly
well.
what I was going to ask, was that, or at least sort of say, would this be something that you think would be best enjoyed with other people? Like, almost like, in my head, for whatever reason, I've got graffiti on Tony Hawk. Like, as in sort of like, you know, as it kind of like...
Yeah, because I mean, that's the kind of mode you wouldn't play on your own, because you just, you know, win. Like, yeah. And Rampage is similar. Like, I was playing it on my own, and all the time I was playing, I was like, it would have been nice to have had somebody else to play this with. And yeah, I think Godzilla falls into a similar bracket. So yeah, I'm definitely going to give it a 7. I think an 8 would be a little bit of a stretch, but if I was you know, on a good day with it, and I imagine if I had played it back in the day, you know, you have a weekend where you watched like a you know, crappy 60s Godzilla, and you have that on the go as well. I think you'd have a good time with it. So yeah, an easy 7, I think.
Who'd have thought that Godzilla stubbing his toe would increase the score of a video game?
I know. Like, it was that moment. Like, there's a kind of I think, because I was trying to pin that one down myself, and because for ages it was annoying me. I was like, why is this animation? Because it's a long animation as well. It's like, why is this happening? Like, this is, I should be able to do stuff, or like, oh god, King Ghidorah is interrupting my animations where I'm trying to breathe fire at him and he's just headbutting me, dick, and all that kind of stuff.
All like that, and then King Ghidorah,
and then the stubbed toe animation popped up again, and I was like, you know what? It's weirdly endearing. Like, it is endearing. And it was that moment where I thought, you know what? Like, that, for all of the kind of modern day Godzilla stuff that is doing the rounds, that is probably the one thing you are never going to see a modern day Godzilla do. And between stubbing a toe, between stubbing a toe and Godzilla doing a drop kick, I was like, you know what? It's labelled as Godzilla 90s, but those are old school moves. Like, that is a 60s era
genuine
move set. And I was like, you know what? Like, fair play. I think I see what you were getting at here.
Like, that's cool, man.
And it clicked after that.
Look, that's what we're here for, you know, to try and, I guess, bring people's attention to these things that you kind of go, actually, you know, you might not want to go back to a GameCube Godzilla game, but actually, when you think about it from a historical artifact, if you will, you know, like, it's actually a time capsule back to the 60s. It might be worth it. So, you know, I'm glad you had a good time with it. Well, just very quickly then, I think I've seen like one Godzilla film like in my life, which is probably like the mid-90s one with, you know, Matthew Broderick. good Godzilla films then? Just that, have you seen all the recent ones and stuff like?
So
what's just gone on Netflix? Is it -1? -1. Is it -0?
I really enjoyed Godzilla -1. Like it obviously like looks great because it got an Oscar, didn't it, for like special effects or something like that. Looks the part, but is also exactly the kind of story I like in a Godzilla film. I really liked Shin Godzilla as well.
I'm just nodding.
Yeah, no, that's good. And then beyond that, I do have a soft spot for some of the old school insane ones where Godzilla is going to start doing drop kicks against Mechagodzilla and stuff like that. I've not seen many of them, but the sort of OG Godzilla King Kong one is one that comes to mind pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Where, perfect example of blokes in suits. It all goes, like, there are plenty of ones where it's kind of a bit Power Rangers-y, that kind of vibe.
Keep talking.
But that's where they kind of got it from, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's as a series, it's well worth drilling into. But I mean, without wishing to sound like too much of a pretentious wanker, I've always preferred the Japanese ones to the American ones.
You are a pretentious wanker.
Yeah,
okay. Just lean into it.
True.
It's fine. It's okay. It's fine. So little went well. Larger went well. Will Lara go well?
Didn't you say something about swinging for the fences at one point?
Exactly. Yeah. So the whole series as a whole, or at least the starting point of Brian Lara, went well. So it started in 1995. You look on your face.
You just sound like you're going to launch into a family history rather than the games. Like the starting point of Brian Lara. His parents.
Brian Lara, born 1965. It was born as a series as a Graham Gooch cricket, which is always funny to hear the word Gooch. And he was an English cricketer. And then it became Brian Lara cricket in 1995 for the Genesis / Mega Drive. And I had that. And you remember Codemasters, like the micro machines?
Yeah.
They had like the rounded off Mega Drive carts. Like when you say remember, you're going to look. Oh, I've got one here.
Oh, I've got one over there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Anyway,
got micro machines actually.
But so the Brian Lara cricket, exactly. So it was a distinctive looking cart. It was the best selling game in the UK for 10 weeks in 1995. Oh. Yeah, and like for a cricket game, that's pretty good. And I'm going to be honest, that is I fucking loved Brian Lara cricket on the Mega Drive, and also the PlayStation 1 version, 1997, which was very similar. The gameplay was pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah.
It felt like, so T20 cricket never used to exist. That was like a mid-2000s sort of idea that there should be a short form of the game and people enjoy the sort of party feel and shorter version rather than the fucking long version.
I was going to say, a version where we play less of the game will be better.
Yeah.
That's damning, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, though, that's what Brian Lara cricket was in the mid-90s. That is, you could play your 10-over games and you could get through a game of cricket relatively quick and easy. That is, and the detection of the ball and the lack of lag, I would say, almost. I mean, like there don't get me wrong, there is something there, but generally, it's, I don't know, it just feels like a really good sports game, really well made. Like, for something where you have to emulate someone throwing a ball at somebody 90 miles an hour and then playing a certain type of shot, whether that's a defensive shot, a drive through the covers. Rich is nodding, or hit into the stands.
Funny enough, Rich is not nodding because Rich just realised that he should have said the original Godzilla from like the 54 or something like that. Why did I not say original Godzilla?
Godzilla versus Brian Lara.
Watch the original Godzilla.
And it's just like, it does a really good job of making it feel like you are physically playing a game of cricket. Which, at the time when I was 7 years old, I was like, I fucking love cricket. If this is what cricket is. Now, Test match, I'd say cricket now as a sport is much better. Like, it's much more exciting than it used to be back in the mid-90s, but it used to be stodgy as hell, especially Test matches. It used to just be the run rate used to be really slow. Brian Lara cricket, the run rate was whatever you made it. Like, you could be out for 10 runs, like your entire team if you wanted to be. Or you could be scoring hundreds and hundreds, just like Brian Lara used to do. Like, there's a lot of variation within the game and how you play it. Also, great multiplayer game. Like I remember sitting with my friend Wayne, like as in like, and just playing so much Brian Lara cricket, like as in, and it's just one of those games where you just chilling, like you just talk about, like where you're just chilling out with your friends on like a Friday night or something like that, and you just sort of, you could spend 3 or 4 hours playing the game, but you don't have to concentrate on it.
Yeah.
But it's almost that's a positive thing, that it just ebbs and flows over you, and you're having fun whilst you're also talking and chatting away.
Yeah.
So, and there's still things that, quotes from the commentator that sort of still stick in your head. So the main commentator on the game in 1995, 1997 is Jonathan Agnew, and he still does Test Match Special now, 30 years later. And it sounds the same. Like it's just, nothing's changed, and that's a good thing. Like, cricket is like some weird, like the commentators. It's like some weird slow version of slam poetry. Like, they're just like, cricket is all about what you say about cricket and how. Like, I swear the British, like, or the English even, just kind of like, I think, like, kind of took cricket on as like a sport for the empire, if you will, just to be aware that in 200 years' time they could just be really dry-witted and sarcastic about it in the commentary box. That's why they love the sport, because it's just so like, oh, we're like we're gonna say some sort of like witty zinger like Basil Fawlty or whatever. Just it feels quintessentially English, but a lot of that comes from, I guess, the trimmings of it, like is in the like is in looking at, as you are watching a game of cricket. And I love sitting down and listening to a game of cricket, and a lot of people will say, oh, like how can you sit and listen to a radio broadcast about one of these sports that you draw, and it's really boring, goes on 5 days, but it's all about these conversations that these people are having around the sport, like, and it's usually ex-cricketers or experts in cricket. Obviously, it would make sense, but like Test Match Special, like they have for a long time, and I don't know if they still do it at the moment because I haven't listened for a little while, but like because sometimes I watch it on TV, and they'll have like people will send them cakes in, and it'll be like
Really?
yeah, it'll be like they'll spend half an hour on the tea break talking about these mad ass cakes that people have sent in. She's like, what kind of fucking sport is this? I don't care, but I really enjoy this. Like, seriously, like it's wonderful. So yeah. You're starting to come around to cricket now, aren't you?
It just sounds like the kind of Great British Bake Off tie-in that someone's surely working on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it feels like you're in the Great British Bake Off tent of sport, if you will, like, as in the sport that would go in there. But yeah, the 95, 97 version feel like that, but also have that quick form of the sport. So fast forward then to, again, the PSP version in, is it 2007, I think it was. Codemasters are still working on it. And that was kind of like the last named cricket game, really, the Brian Lara era. That is, he retired like a year later, which, understandably had been around for like nearly 20 years. And they just started calling it like EA Sports. I think EA is an EA cricket game now. And it kind of lost some of its luster, and also the PSP port. It's port sport short. Port is shit. That's where I was going with that.
Right.
So the Lara part of the podcast, this last little bit, the port's awful. It does such a disservice to the initial games, and also the game of cricket itself as well, probably.
No cake. Needs more cake.
Yeah. I wish it did have more cake, yeah. So it's set around the 50 over World Cup in 2007, and you've got 2 different modes. You can play the World Cup effectively as a team, or you can do this pressure play mode, which is just the training scenario mode. It's stunning how many PSP games, and I know for a fact on our schedule we've got a few games coming up that I know I've played previously that I'm like, oh, this has this exact same thing going on. Like the Soul Calibur idea of it all, that is in that. It's like, it's all, I understand. It's like game developers just went, every single, that's all being cahoots. Every single PSP game must have a tutorial / scenario mode where it's like, you have to bowl 5 wickets against, this person, like, is in and get, or you have to, bowl 5 balls and get a wicket. And it's just like, it's just so soulless. Like, there's nothing to it. Like, and I know there has to be some sort of training part of games, but in this circumstance, they don't. it's just text on a page that just says you have to bowl 5 balls and get a wicket, and it's just like and you're into it. It's not like most scenarios where it's like, oh, it's the middle of the the 1975 Ashes series, and you're Ian Botham, and and you've got to knock 100 runs. Do you know what I mean? It's just literally like you go bowl 5 balls at this guy, and you're like, it was so annoying. Like, it wouldn't take them much to write that out, and they used to do that in the original Brian Lara series. They had the scenarios. Yeah. I remember them vividly from like what I can't remember. It might have been 97, where it's like you have to bat your way out of this situation, or you have to get this many wickets in this situation, in this famous cricketing situation. Why they couldn't have done that in 2007? Just didn't, especially if you were going to say PSP games that we do this scenario training situation with, it would have been perfect to do it in, and they just didn't do it.
Is it a training mode necessarily, or is it more so that they could tick that kind of portability box so that you could squeeze in something on the bus?
You're probably right to say that would be the case.
Full game of cricket.
But even then, though, like I explained, though, you can select as little as I think it's 10 overs, maybe. I'm sure you can.
I have no idea if that's actually a little amount or not.
Yeah,
genuinely,
60 balls. That is in so.
You're saying numbers.
It's a small game of cricket.
Okay, right. How long would that take to play in real life then? Approximately. Appreciate that's probably a difficult one to answer.
Okay, yeah, maybe and if you are skipping like the in between, the
cake.
Yeah, you're skipping the cake. You're skipping the in between bits. So in cricket, there's a lot of kind of like the ball has to walk back to his mark. Like it's in like there's time in between. Right, yeah. Whereas in this, you could bowl a ball and the action of whatever that is could be over in seconds, and then you can get back into the next ball. So I guess you could probably play. I think I played a game in like 30 minutes. That is in okay. Do you know what I mean? So it's not as if it was like ridiculously long.
Compared to like FIFA and stuff like that, it's still a bit
that's fair. That's fair. So I mean, like I'm going to try and break this down very quickly, just because it's not worth your time to listen to how bad this port is. If you're going to play Brian Lara cricket, you're going to play a cricket game, go and play one of the originals, either on the Mega Drive or on the PS1. Forgive the janky graphics on the PS1, and the Mega Drive one is very much of its time, but it's very clear what you see going on. Do you know what I mean? That you see there's a game of cricket going on. In this, you do as well, but like it's 2007 and the graphics still look like 1997, and it's like there's no discernible sort of attributes of any of the cricket players, really. You're meant to be able to see like the best team, like for example would have been Australia at the time, or India, but like whatever you do, whoever you play as, it doesn't matter. Like they all just look like the same generic person in a different coloured strip. Like there's no difference between that. The cardinal sin of this game, and the thing that drives it down, probably about 5 points for me, no fucking commentary. The audio is just background noise of the crowd. There's no music. And as I just explained, quite sort of, like I guess excitedly before, about how much I love the commentary of the cricket and the feeling of listening to that, and how quintessential it is to the game of cricket. To have none, I understand you might have to squeeze lots of stuff onto a UND disc, but Jesus, it just it just rips the heart out of the game. You know what I mean? That is in, so that's really annoying.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah, very much so. That was some good cricket commentary.
Thank you. Was it suitably cutting?
Now say something witty. Cut shot. See, you don't even know you're doing it.
No, it's because I'm British.
And in terms of performance, there's definitely some frame rate drop. Like after you play a shot or a ball is bowled, you can actually see the game slow down. Like you can see it struggling to a depressing amount. You're like, oh, this really is chugging along right here. It's a real piss poor port of what was a wonderful series for a little while. And if you can, we call ourselves a retro gaming podcast, and I know sometimes we stray into some of things that people wouldn't call retro gaming necessarily, but definitely. If you can go back to the sort of mid-90s and play some cricket, and you like cricket, or you're a newfound fan of cricket in the USA, for example, or you wanted to try it a little bit as a video game, I cannot recommend enough going to play Brian Lara cricket at that time and sitting around with a friend and playing that. It's really, really fun. Nice. Do not play this PSP game. 2 out of 10.
2 out of 10, right.
That's all I have to say about that. I think we crowbarred Little, Larger and Lara together pretty well.
Yes. Well done.
It was fine. So, yeah, thanks very much for listening, guys. Go out and enjoy the T20 World Cup. If you're not an England fan, potentially a Scotland fan, they might be knocking us out, which would be, if Australia and Scotland go into cahoots and knock us out of our group, that is in, they would fucking love that, wouldn't they?
Oh, well, yeah.
And we deserve it.
Yep.
Because of the British Empire thing. Right, anyway, thanks very much, guys.
Love you all. Bye.